This is my hometown originally, so I'm not coming that far. Can you hear me now? Yeah. This is just a nice, easy trip down. I picked up my brother Gerald, and a big part of this presentation, I'll tell you in a minute. Everybody has a part in recording history. Well, thank you for supporting Brown Bag and Jackson County. I work with a lot of historical, a lot of nonprofits, and some of them are really, really struggling, and you folks are doing, looks like, pretty well. Today, I'm going to share some personal memories. Actually, they're memories before I was born, but they became pretty personal through my mother's record of her life as a young woman. She recorded her thoughts and her memories and day-to-day events in a diary, and I incorporated it in the book. I know at least one person here who has the book. And I said, you're going to hear the rest of the story today. Things that aren't recorded, things that are written between the lines that I know a little bit about, and things that I don't know exactly, but I know where she's coming from. We're going to try to answer some questions. We're going to go back in the Great Depression. How many have memories that kind of touch the Great Depression? You know, we're all kind of secondhand. Personally, I was real close for quite a while. You know, we're going to try to answer, what were the disappointments? What did they do when they were disappointed? Hey, everybody has a disappointment. My recollection is that there was nobody complaining. Maybe I just didn't hear it. I didn't hear anybody complaining when I grew up. Even commenting and whining. That was off the board. And the farm where I grew up, don't whine, don't complain. Did these people, that we know as our ancestors, did they have formed lasting friendships? Or was it a social media, Facebook, 500 acquaintances and no deep relationships? I think we'll find it was quite a bit different. What did they do for entertainment? I don't remember when I was a child growing up on a Caves farm, mostly work. I don't remember we went out of our way for much. We made our own entertainment, right? We made some pretty crazy entertainment. And here's a question some of you know. How are Codfish Hollow, Dark Hollow, and Stony Point connected? Anybody know where those places are? They're not part of the Ghost Town book because they didn't have a post office. If you had a post office and it went away, you're a ghost town. They didn't have a post office. If you've heard of these places, maybe not. How many have heard of Our Gal Sunday? Anybody know what that was? Who that was? See, I'm really going back beyond. I listened to that radio program. Well, only when I was home ill. Mom listened to it. It was one of the radio soap operas. Why did they call it soap opera? Well, because it was sponsored by Lux Soap. It was kind of like the TV soap operas now. And this particular one was a radio drama in 1937 and 1959. I don't know if my mother was listening to it as a young woman. She might have been, but I know as a child I remember she did listen, doing the ironing or whatever she was in the kitchen. It went from, it was a radio episode. Each one was different. I don't know if it was weekly, daily, or what it was. But it opened with, in the midst of an ongoing storyline. And the storyline went like this. Once again, we present Our Gal Sunday, the story of an orphan girl named Sunday from a little mining town of Silver Creek, Colorado, who in young womanhood married England's richest and most handsome lord, Lord Henry Brinthorpe. The story that asks this question: can this girl from a mining town in the West find happiness as a wife of a wealthy, entitled Englishman? We had some family members and several friends had personally shared and recorded their memories in diaries, and those diaries only touched on the edge of a story, not unlike, you know, the radio soap operas. They're soap operas or TV or otherwise taken right from life. The memories that are written down, even the ones that are shared verbally that I've heard, they touch on some issues. But generally we don't go off into the dotted details about something that was troubling us or something we aren't real proud of in our past, or you know, something that's just kind of laying there. So those emotions don't get recorded in verbal sense. And even when the scenario or the scene is recorded, this happened on a certain day with this group of people, you only get what the writer, what the author wants to put on paper, and that's what we have. We're going to touch some deeper emotions here that I think we'll be able to discover as we listen to the diary. There was a question that came up here. Some of these emotions are hidden, forever remain hidden. For example, I recall my mother mentioned only once that some people, possibly the Miller family, that was her parents, were puzzled, kind of like myself today when I hear this story. What motivated Highland Owen and one of his 5 sons to leave a wife, a mother, siblings, family, and friends in Jackson County and travel 900 miles and spend a year in Oklahoma during the Great Depression? I recall hearing a story, and it wasn't a true story, but somewhat related, that they drove a horse-drawn wagon load of onions in the journey. Well, maybe is the way I heard it. They had driven a wagon load of onions from Clay Mills to Coconut to sell. They didn't drive all the way to Oklahoma. I don't know how they got there because it's, I don't think he hitchhiked. But this afternoon I'm going to share real-life memories, not a soap opera, from this diary. As you can see, I've got a few pages marked there. The words we'll hear are written by a maiden name Ernestine Marie Miller. Later, she took the Owen surname, destined to become my mother. Listen to learn if she found her answers for the same question facing Argyle Sunday. Can a young woman living on a farm in Stony Point, Iowa, living with her parents until age 24, working part-time as a hired girl, can she find happiness married to a young man living across the road? Yeah. I touch on that. In fact, it tells me that she did. That young man living across the road, he lived there from 31 to 35 after they moved out of Clay Mills, and came to town almost, and wound up out in Stony Point, right across the road from my mother's family. I mean, it was a T intersection just like Clay Mills. It was just a replica. And I tell you, her record says the Owen and Miller family were in each other's house at least once every day, if not more. That was her entertainment. That young man, he also had ancestors in England. Okay, just like this Lord Brinthorpe. In fact, Owen ancestors go back to 1600. And best we can tell, they didn't have any money. They were not titled Lord or otherwise. The best we can tell, they were pretty hard scrabble. They couldn't claim royalty. This young man was a hired man earning $1 a day with bed, laundry service, and 3 meals a day. This was a suitor that my mother married. He was honest, definitely not rich. His name, Ralph William Owen, destined to become my father. Join me as we recall the memories that reach back beyond our personal experience. Mine. Turn off your cell phones, I guess. I don't know if I did or not. You got this technology and then you can't get it to work, huh? I get, once in a while I get a crazy thing. Turn on your imagination. I mean, our imagination lately, I believe, has kind of gone to sleep. What do? I'm guilty too. I go, oh, what's on TV? I live alone. and I get entertained, and I get bored in about 30 minutes unless it's a travelogue or something pretty interesting. So turn on your imagination here, and we're gonna travel back. Snippets here. I've got some pages marked. She started in a memory book that was not part of her diary, but in her journal, she remembered people that I had not met. Her grandmother, of course, who, carted the wool that Grandpa sheared off the sheep and cleaned the wool and spun it on the spinning wheel that my daughter has yet. And she would knit. My great-grandmother would knit mittens and sweaters and everything. And I think of that, and I know my daughter-in-law does knitting and stuff. She turns out a lot of stuff in a day. She talks about her brother, Wilford Nick, and where they lived, and when they moved to the old house there at Stony Point. They had lived originally in Codfish across the other side of the river, and they came across this on the north side and settled in Stony Point. There were some questions that she recorded out of this mother's journal. Anyone, you can buy those books in bookstores. They ask a whole bunch of questions. They leave space for a family to sit down and answer the question, knowing that someday the family, kids, grandkids, may want to know. And the question was, who was the first person you had a crush on? Well, let's see if I can find that page here. Maybe I should stick this back here and stick this over here. Now I can use both hands. Who was the first person you had a crush on? He was a classmate in grade school. He never knew. Okay? And we won't know either. I mean, it's like, okay. I don't need to know. I suppose we all had one of those. What were some national and world events that had impacted on my family and how they affected us? She says, during World War I, some of my uncles were in the service. Some were there. Mother's brother, Sinky Jensen. That's a pretty good nickname. That's name's lovely. And Dad's brother Albert, and others thought they were going to go. I know Grandpa One thought he was going to go. Growing up, I worried about. She says, I guess I didn't worry about much of anything. And I'll tell you for a fact, I believe that was true. But I know there were times when other things were on her mind, but she was so busy working. I talk about daily life beyond Stony Point, what was going on. 1933, the year she started recording, that was the year that they put the footings in for the Golden Gate Bridge out in San Francisco. And that bridge is still standing up pretty strong and straight. Here's one, just a little bit about farm chores and outdoor chores. The women and the men were tough. And the women knew how to get their hands dirty in the house with typical things to get dirty in the house. They also knew how to get dirty out in the farm. And I know Mom helped a lot of hours out on the farm before I was born, because the big farm, and they didn't mind to hire hired help. So Mom was out helping to pick corn and livestock and whatever. Then I came along and things changed a little bit, I guess. I remember some things about the old house, but she said their old house was cold and windy and drafty, like all farmhouses like that. Like, well, okay. I know they had a stove. In 1933, New Year's Day, Ernestine Marie Miller started writing in her memories in a small notepad. She had 3 books, I believe, little books. One was actually an official diary that was given to her as a gift. but the other ones were just little notepads that she'd had or picked up. And this one was from J.C. Penney Company, probably built right downtown. In her own words, on the front page, property of Miss Ernestine M. Miller, age 19, 3 months and 4 days old. I knew Mom was being pretty precise. I didn't check, but I assume that that's a correct number. On January 1st, now we're going to find out what did they do for celebrations, like birthdays and anniversaries and Christmas. And we got, what do we got, 10 or 12 now, the national holidays. I mean, they didn't, any of them even touch paper as far as being a vacation or a holiday. January 1st, Mr. and Mrs. Ben Miller and daughter Phyllis Jane, he would have been our great uncle, right? And I remember Phyllis Jane, a little older than I was. Mr. and Mrs. Will Miller, son Billy, Mr. and Mrs. Sinky Jensen and family, Charlie and Ed Miller, Jess Jensen, were here for goose dinner. This is New Year's Day, 1933. Camilla and Louis Owen, from across the road, were over a short time in the evening. Across the road. I went across the road. They came across the road. What else did you do to get across the road? It was just like no big deal. I hopped on the subway and I went downtown. January 2nd, it was a lovely spring day in Iowa. They happen. We're going to have some 95-degree days. We washed and made a pair of pajamas. That was recovering from New Year's Day. Celebrating. I put something in here. Yeah, I didn't mark this one. In her diary it says, took a bath, 10 o'clock at night, January 13th. Now, in an old farmhouse, you didn't keep a lot of heat on in the evening. Well, summertime in July when you're cooking in the kitchen, it was a hot room. But I don't know, but I bet, like most places, where do you take a bath when it was cold? You open the oven door, start up a good wood fire, heat up a little water on the wood stove, and when you're on to bed, you got the whole kitchen to yourself. It's your bathroom, you take a bath. And first of all, you had to get the rinse tub. It was actually bathtub, rinse tub, wash tub is usually for, I don't know, could have been used for part of kitchen process. And that was your bathtub. Set that right in front of the oven door, and it was a memorable thing to put in your diary. I got to thinking about it. It was just automatic. You knew what you were going to do, and you probably didn't take a bath or a shower, or didn't take a shower. There was no indoor bathroom in that house. I don't believe Grandma even had one. Grandpa died in that house, I believe. I don't know if he didn't have one when he died. He had electricity. Yeah, Depper was. But he wanted electricity finally, because television came and he couldn't get a battery. So he had a battery radio. So it was a Spartan life. And whining and complaining just didn't cut it. I mean, he'd pitch you out of the family if you were a whiner. You just better jump right in and make things happen. Yeah, I talk about how you get your bath water and you adjust the temperature of it, and you got to take a pitcher then and take it over and dump it in the old in the sink in the little corner room, pipe out through the wall into the yard, dump the bath water. You know, that's probably a little better than some places in Africa, but it's not that much different. The rest of us, myself included, are pretty spoiled. Speaking for myself. Here's January 27th. We're going to move through it. That spring day, 25 days later, that ground was white with a good coat of winter snow this morning. So I sewed most of the day when I wasn't doing some weekend cleaning. Also baked bread today. well, no sense just doing one thing, you know, get the bread going, get that in the oven, and then do some cleaning. Okay, what do we got here? There's so much. February 1st, February 11th, I'm sorry, Mrs. L.A. Caldwell came in this afternoon and stayed here all night. Now, I don't know who she was. I sewed most of the evening in small handwriting inside the brace and inside brackets. Mom added this note. Here's one of those partially told stories. Added this note. 2 years ago tonight was a Luther League box social in Andrew with H.H. Flegel. Well, apparently she had attended a box social 2 years before with someone from Andrew, just up the road from Stony Point. As we read these words, we can only guess at how or why my mother remembered events from 2 years ago when she was 17. Was that the memory of her first date or first kiss? We'll never know what was going on there. The next day, Camilla Owen, Camilla turned out to be, you know, of course, a sister-in-law, and they lived out, Camilla Scott, they lived out in Buckhorn. Camilla Owen was over in the afternoon. Wilford and Pauline and I were over to the Owens in the evening. You got to keep it even there. And Caldwell was here all night. Now, she may have been a teacher that stayed there. The name never came up in any family discussions I know of. March, okay, I got to know it. February 24th. Came down to Uncle Bill's in the afternoon with Harold Owen, because Harold across the road too. Was uptown a while in the p.m., was to Reverend Since in the evening for confirmation instruction, stayed at Bill Miller's all night. They lived in town. March 12th. So here's H.H. Flegel back in the writing again. I'm sure it was him. Howard Flegel was here this forenoon. Now, keep in mind, Ralph and his father had left several weeks or months before and headed to Oklahoma. We'll talk about that in just a minute. There's quite a mystery there. Maybe I should talk about it now. I guess I did mention that, didn't I? I was going to anyway. Yeah. You know, why did they do that? Why did they take off and leave the family and friends? And well, I tell you what, behind the scenes, times were so tough, and Grandpa had a big family, and the man was supposed to earn the money. Well, he was at the age where he wasn't able to go out and do hard farm work, and two of the boys were already, three actually, were already working to bring some money, and then two of the girls were working hard, so they were subsisting. But I'm sure my grandfather felt some obligation to make some money. He had a brother-in-law and his sister, Grandpa's sister, had passed away, and his brother-in-law, Percy, in Oklahoma, was needing some help. And he was a piano tuner, piano repair. My grandpa knew something about that. He had to hear from you. He was, invited himself, I guess, to go down and help take over some of the business, thinking maybe they'd make a little money on that. So they were down there. Why Dad went along? I don't know. Do you ever say? I know he got shortchanged getting out of Clay Mills. The school had closed before he got his graduation certificate in the middle of the year in 8th grade. So he didn't have a graduate diploma. You couldn't get in Iowa schools then in high school unless you had an 8th grade piece of paper. So now, whether he went down there knowing that he could get enrolled in Oklahoma high school, I don't know. I do know that he did get enrolled in a school pretty right across from where they were living and spent quite a bit of time there, down there 9 months. So he got some credits, and they proved that he was up to, came home, and that came in quite handy because then he got enrolled in Andrew and he graduated out of Andrew. So part of the reason, I think, why he went, maybe he was thinking, if nothing else, he could work, but work was hard to find if you didn't have connections and you didn't have a skill. He might have helped tune piano. They rebuilt some pianos, I know that. So you can read between the lines. I do a lot, probably anyway, like most of us. May 28th. Worked all day, hardly knew it was Sunday. Now, that was true whether you thought you worked all day or not, because you had to work 3 meals a day. And then when Grandpa went, big meals for Dad, you had livestock, you had everything, chickens, geese, guineas, I don't know, sheep, horses. She was out there doing some of that. That work was just work. But she worked in the house all day. Hardly knew it was Sunday. So, yes, it was work. Hardly knew it was Sunday. Camilla was over a while. Came across the road. They commiserated on having to work Sunday, I suppose. June 3rd. Tried to sew today, but was quite tired after being up so late. I don't remember where they went. Oh yes, a wedding. They're probably out celebrating. Quite tired of so late. Annie and Fritz went home this p.m. Mildred was over in the evening. Now that was another Owen from across the road. That was the older one. The next day, June 3rd, didn't do much of anything. Slept in the p.m. Camilla was over a while, went to Ed McCarron's to the dance tonight with the Owens. Camilla stayed all night with me. Later in the year, Mom often recalled how much fun everyone had at McCarron's barn dance. Anyone know where Ed McCarron's farm? Yeah, had a barn. I don't barn there yet. Probably might be. Yeah. I remember one barn dance. Sunday school teacher Don Castile cleaned out his barn. The youth group, he restaged the barn dance.
So that they went to.
I guess codfish barnstormers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first year that barn was built, I was working for Arnold Stamp, and we parked a threshing machine there and filled that place full of a straw pile. June 28th, baked bread today. Lewis, that would be Owen, and I went gooseberry picking this p.m. Went to a dance at Codfish in the evening. Now, I think that Codfish was, I think the same place that barnstormers are now. I think that barn there with the stamps on that ground and land. Couldn't swear to it. Okay. Okay. July 11th. Ironed most of the day. Sometimes you'd wash one day and iron the next day, or sprinkle it. Or do people still iron clothes? Oh, hey! Yeah. My wife, my cousin, she ironed everything. But iron most of the day was in Maquoketa in the p.m. Camilla, Margaret, Lewis, George, Delbert, Owen. Her line, I don't know who that was, Bertha May Riggs were here in the evening. In a small print, probably added later, Mom penciled in this note: Ralph Owen, 19th birthday. Now he's still down in Oklahoma. So it was kind of like, okay, I got a couple options here. Keep my options open. Okay. July 23rd, Camilla and I went down to help get dinner for the Thrashers. How many remember hearing about Thrashers dinners? Yeah. Oh man, that was everything from very good to almost good to pretty good, whatever they had available. July 23rd, Thrashers at Van Hook's. What was it, Van Hook's? That name sound familiar? Yeah. Didn't get home until 8:30 evening. Women and girls were still living at home. This might help prepare a meal threshing crew. The threshing crew always knew who served the best meals and who made the best pies anyway. At least I did. I wasn't much of a crew, but I did help water boy. August 27th, what is this? August 29th, sorry. Finished ironing in the AM, sewed in the PM, finished reading, listen to this, wanted a husband. She finished reading a book. Okay. Samuel Hopkins, Adams, and Eve. Now, I know she found time to read. Oh, you bet. She was an avid reader. She liked to read. A book, you can stick it most anywhere. Pick it up and read it. Go to September 12th. It says, what's going on there? Okay, finished ironing, again, ironing, sewed in the PM, made time, made a skirt. It was at the Wilms. That would be Harold Wilms' parents. This live out in Copley here, Southtown. In the evening, where Luther League young people held their meeting for the month of September. Next day. Sewed most of the day, rainy and damp all day. Was over to the Owens in the evening. Okay. Here's one here. October 9th, washed again today. Uncle Jess was over, Owens were over in the evening. October 10th, finished ironing today, went to Maquoketa to Miss Lorenzen, she was a teacher. Went to Luther League at Joel's, stayed in Uncle Bill's. No, this day, Ernestine records another special memory in small handwriting, squeezed in a small space. It was obviously added a day or two after. This is not a real-time recorded at the end of this day. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot. I didn't know about it, didn't hear about it till. Anyway, Mom added 7 words. Ralph came home from Ardmore, Oklahoma today. Now, that was an afterthought that got added in. It wasn't 2 years after, it was as soon as she heard about it. In another journal written years later, Mom noted that Ralph Owen had attended this high school for 115 days, so she kept track of that in another journal. So she was marking off the days, apparently. These are all things that, if she ever talked about her dad, I never heard about it. My brother Milton said something about her recently, well, before Dad passed, that he'd shared some stories out around this time, you know, what was going on. Okay, here's October 28th. Baked a cake in the AM, went to Maquoketa in the PM. Had so much business, didn't think I'd ever get home. Now listen to this. According to her accounting, she kept an exact account at the end of that year. Every penny she spent, every time she spent anything. That was just the way it was. She had one disappointment she talked about, not a big deal. But several years younger, probably age 14, she said, I was unhappy, my dad. I wanted to paper my bedroom upstairs. And 20 cents, 2 rolls of paper. Grandpa said, no, we don't have money for that. We got to save the money for taxes. So she didn't paper her bedroom. She didn't know if she'd ever get home. She spent 58 cents that day, okay? When I got home, supper, ate, and went over to Owens, went with Ralph and Camilla to McCarran's Masquerade. This must have been sure had a keen time. Keen, okay, that was the word of the day, I suppose. The last evening, Saturday evening, before Ernestine wrote in her diary, she had a punk time at the McCarran dance. Tonight, when Ralph went along, she had a keen time. Now, I don't know if that made a difference or not. But again, we'll never know. There's so much you can read between the lines if you know the players. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit, or put a challenge up to you a little later. November 11th, cleaned the dining room and the parlor this AM. Read this PM. Okay, she's finding time to read. The next day, November 12th, Mother was sick, so I stayed home with her today. The rest of my family went over to Uncle Ben's. I went to the Owens in the afternoon. Mrs. Owen and Camilla were over in the evening. Now, keep in mind, these homes were small. I was never in the old Owen home, it's gone. I imagine it was small. But the Miller home, and then New Year's meal, I don't know, had 12, 15 people. They didn't have much room. The kitchen stove, the table took up most of the kitchen, and I don't know, they set up dining area somewhere, but people lived elbow to elbow, and you didn't need 18, 20,000, 2,000 square feet for a house. First of all, it'd be a lot to clean and a lot to heat, and it's just the way it was. So staying home was cramped even when nobody else was there. The November 13th, fried down meat today. I suppose that means they did some butchering the day before. That was usually a 2 or 3 day affair. There was always something to do. And that was a disappointment that, yes, Mother did admit that in writing. She says, if you had something to do over again in her journal, what would you do? Well, I wouldn't be so quick to say no. Do you remember Mom being quick to say no? Maybe you do. I don't remember her or Dad very often saying no. I suppose I calibrated my requests to fit when and where they would fit. But I don't remember. There were some, yes. But she said that she didn't remember ever disagreeing with her parents. Let's see, what else we got? I think there was an interesting one here. Here's one, Thanksgiving Day again. Didn't seem much like it. Mrs. Owen and Mildred Owen were over in the PM, had oyster supper tonight. Hookie out of Van Hook, I think, furnished the oysters. All the Owens, Hookie, Riggs, and kids, and Marion were here. All the Owens, that was 9. Boy, you were already at capacity in that house, plus the Millers. Here's one, kind of interesting. December 24th, day before Christmas. Got our goose cleaned for dinner today, for tomorrow. Okay, they're going to have goose dinner again. They had goose dinner for New Year's. Grandpa wouldn't sacrifice a pig or a steer. Chickens and geese, ducks. That was a meal that Grandpa. Spam. Yeah, spam, you kind of like that. But got our goose cleaned for dinner tomorrow. Uncle Jess was over today. Was over at the Owens a short while in the PM. Went to Christmas program at the Lutheran Church tonight with Camilla. Camilla came along. Went home with her, and Mom stayed at the Owen house that night. So they were, you know, just like two families that were destined to come together, I guess. December 25th, Christmas. Owens were all over for dinner except Mildred. Ralph, Harold, Camilla, Hookie. Hookie wasn't an Owen. He was like one that brought in the family. And George stayed for supper. We practiced after supper. What did they practice? On this Christmas Day, 1933, it was about to end. The Great Depression was showing no signs of ending. Financial resources were tight. We didn't read any mention of Christmas presents or gifts. In all her diaries, all her writing, she only mentions a gift, a Christmas gift, once. And that disappointed her mother. Because when my mother was small, she stayed in the house with her younger brother, Wilford. And her mother went out and helped with the chores. Well, kids are curious. The Mom and Wilford found a wagon. That was apparently reserved for Christmas. So here comes Grandma back in the house, and here's Mom pulling her little brother around. We found a wagon. And later, she said, I know Mom was disappointed. Wouldn't you be? That would probably be one of the high points of the year. Give a gift that would be something special. And Mom knew, or she heard, or figured out that Grandma was disappointed that she wasn't there. How many times did we disappoint our parents? More than once. Many times it wasn't even mentioned in a way that was a biggie, but you knew you kind of stepped over a line somewhere. So here's the expense record I'm going to close for 1933. This is at what I call the trailing edge of the Great Depression. I was born in '38, I was born in this house. My Mom and Dad were working on the Art Wendell farm out here. They didn't own a house. They had an old beat-up car and personal belongings. And they didn't have a house they called their own. Births were at home. They didn't have any money. So, Dad and Mom go to the Miller farm house. That's where I was born, in that home. And, so there's some connections here. But on the 28th of January, she starts her record in the beginning of 1933. She bought 1 roll adhesive tape, 5 cents. 2 cakes of oatmeal soap, 10 cents. 2 glass tops for the percolator. 2. Why, did you lose one, drop one? I don't know. 2 percolators, I don't know. 5 cents. Okay. That won't buy the pay the tax. February 25th, peroxide. She peroxide her hair? I don't think so. 10 cents. March 11th, a patent belt. Must be a patent leather. 10 cents. Now this was her seldom trips to. Because these weren't Montgomery Ward Service catalog mail order Amazon delivery to the front door. These had to go get it. Wednesday, March 15th, 5 cents, the Lutheran Church of Andrew. That was the donation. Saturday, March 25th, a slip text, 3 yards at 15 cents a yard, 45 cents. 2.5 yards of print for a dress, 12 cents per yard, 25 cents. A wave set. She had naturally curly hair, so she didn't need a whole lot of wave set. 10 cents. 2 spools of thread, 10 cents. I think some of those spools of thread were in her sewing kit yet when we inherited it. 1 spool of black thread, 5 cents. So she was precise, and later I began to appreciate how precise she was, because she turned out to be quite an artist. She was talented in most, sewing. You have to be fairly precise in those things. It's a combination of things that either you have or you don't have. Like this whole tally, 33, she didn't include the total. I calculated the expense for the whole total, $14.51 for the whole year. Now, it's hardly worth going to the grocery store unless you got at least $20 in your pocket. She wasn't buying groceries. This was personal, and a few gifts. There were a few cupcakes and wedding gifts. Union shirt. Chicken supper, Luther League, 35 cents. So as the years went on, hard times hung on. I'm going to go back to the conclusion here and see if we can see what we might learn at the end of this. On May 23rd, this would have been 1935, Ralph came to me after early tonight to go to commencement in Andrew. Sure had a large crowd. I got Ralph's Rose and Fern and class of 19. Ralph was class president, nearly 21 years old when he graduated from Andrew. He still had hopes of continuing his education, becoming a teacher. Ernestine makes no mention of any graduation parties or gifts to honor anyone, let alone Ralph. So it was it was a joy to read through this, and I'm glad I got it recorded, because she kept those diaries in pretty good shape. They were all readable, some with pencil, some with ballpoint. And after I got this transcribed, and I don't know if it was published yet or not, but I went downstairs to dig through that box again. I couldn't find that one diary. And I looked all over. Oh, they're laying on the floor. No problem, pick it up. Well, it was ballpoint. And the moisture on the concrete, most of it was unreadable. Now, well, okay, another good reason to have it written down, because if anybody wants to know, and not too many do want to know this much about, I mean, if she would have wound up to have been married to the President of the United States, I'll guarantee you, somebody would have went through with a fine-tooth comb looking for all kinds of stuff, scandal if nothing else. Here's one here that talked about their engagement. They came home and parked in the driveway, December, I think, of 35, yeah, right after you graduated. It said, neither one of us had any money, and we didn't know anybody had any money either. We decided we wanted to get married. I don't know how the words went, but anyway, his folks thought we should wait. My folks liked Ralph, and they thought it'd be okay if we got married. So they and Dad's younger brother and Mom's sister, four of them got in the car and went to Rock Island and got married. No waiting loop, or no waiting loop, no waiting time, and you could just go to Just Peace and get a marriage license and get married. But here's actually, yeah, December 5th at noon, Lutheran Parsonage. Before the wedding, I felt very happy. Did she find happiness? Well, momentarily, she did. Were there days that she was unhappy? I'll guarantee you. But did she whine about it? No. I don't ever remember Mom and Dad saying a bad, unkind word to each. They must have somehow agreed that it really wasn't worth the time. I don't know. But it left a pretty good impression on me. It never taught me much about what you do when you get in an argument with your spouse. I didn't have any models, I guess you'd say. Several pages. What would I do different if I had my life to live over again? Something I might do different. I would tell you all more often that I loved you. Try not to say no before listening. It seemed like I thought I was always too busy to listen. I remember busy, but I guess you wouldn't call it intense, prolonged listening. Long enough to say, well, I suppose that'd be all right, or go ask your dad. Yeah. Well, that turned out to be a loop. Go ask your mom. No, if I just tell him, well, she sent me to see you, so okay, he gets the final vote, but it often goes the other way. So I remember a childhood that was filled with blessings and beyond. I would tell you more often, it seemed like always too busy. I guess Dad and I always took it for granted that you loved us and we really loved you. We were both raised not having a lot of hugging displayed. Now, I think that was the rule of the day. I don't think there was a lot of emotions expressed. And that I wouldn't say it's overdone in some cases. Now, it took me a while in my wife's family to get used to the idea of hugging and you know, affectionate kiss on the cheek or whatever. But when the grandkids came along, it became more natural. I don't remember that type of exhibits, I guess, expressions, if you want to call it. These are the last words recorded in her diary. There is a little note that she talked about memories. There's a little souvenir book. It wasn't much bigger than that. It had a beautiful picture on it of a schoolhouse, purple colors, and there's a poem in here I'd like to close with. Bring me back to my school day, bring back my school days to me. What beautiful school day, when beautiful school days are over, and grown men and women are we, though gone we still see them ever, Oh, bring back my school days to me. We long for playmates of childhood who played with us day after day. Little had we dreamt how we loved them until they were gone far away. Oh, beautiful, beautiful school days. Oh, could your sweet memories remain through all the pleasures and sorrows. Bring back our school days again. Author unknown. Thank you. I was reminded to make an announcement. As you know, I've done several books. I enjoy it, helping others do the same. If a small group, check with Bonnie, I guess. I would be available to put a brief presentation together as to the process of capturing verbal, written memories. They may not be your own. They may be somebody in your family, extended, a friend, a neighbor, that touched your life and has some written or records you'd like to share, and get it in writing in case somebody opens the box and the book falls on the floor or gets damaged. So you let Bonnie know, and you let me know, and we'll cook up a time to get back together again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.